Pleased to be joined by Steve Sir. Steve, good morning.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you here. Steve is this week's Community Champion, and Community Champions is sponsored by Innovative Benefits. If it's time for you to review your company benefits, personal insurance, or investment strategies, why don't you talk to Randy Parrish and his team at Innovative Benefits? They will give you straightforward and honest advice with access to the best products in the industry. Trust the great folks at Innovative Benefits to do what's best for you, your family, and your business. To find out more, go to innovativebenefits.ca. Well, Steve, local legend, obviously, Canadian legend, I think more accurately, 2 championships with Ross Shepard back in 99 and 2000, set the record for three-pointers made in the state of Minnesota that stands today. I looked it up before I came. The second place guys, you're still like 42 ahead of him. It was an incredible season.
Good.
Yeah.
Keep him there, yeah.
And then has held for almost 25 years the record in the NCAA, well, almost 20 years rather, record in the NCAA for three-point career percentage for those who made over 300 three-pointers. You had a wonderful 3x3 career, long-time top-ranked player for the whole country of Canada. Now the national team coach for Mongolia for men and women, and much, much more. But why don't we start with the fact that you're home right now, and you have been for several months. You have been coaching the Otwell Junior High School junior high team, a girls team. Your daughter Caitlin plays for them. Or not daughter Caitlin, daughter Izzy plays for them. How's that been to be back into coaching, in coaching young girls?
Fun. It's been a fun season. You forget how short junior high basketball actually is. We have 3 tournaments that have been a lot of fun for the kids. It's cool to see how much they look forward to that, of playing at high schools and the big gyms at the big schools, and being reminded of just how much fun that was when I was growing up with my friends. If you get to have the big weekend of basketball where you might play a feature game on Friday night or something like that, and the excitement of that. And then we've had 6 league games, which doesn't sound like a lot. And our girls went 6-0, which is the first time at Otwell that the girls team has accomplished that in a long time.
Fantastic.
It's a wonderful group of kids. I would tell anybody, if you have a chance to work with players and young people at that level, it's a very rewarding experience because it's a very formative time in their life. It was for me. Junior high was when some lights started to go on for myself, so being able to see some dots get connected and some lights go on for our girls, in particular my daughter, is really meaningful and special. I had a conversation with somebody yesterday talking about what were the important points that you want the kids to take away and hopefully either move into their spring season or move into their next season at junior high or take away to high school. And it's to be competitive, and that you can have fun through being pushed, you can have fun through competing with your teammates, and then also too of really enjoying the success of your teammates, of if somebody has a big game, being really genuinely happy for them because in practice you work hard together. Everybody sees the work that they all do, and that when they earn something, that it's deserved because it's through their effort and their sweat. It's been a really fun experience. We have playoffs starting next week. I get nervous before the games coaching kids, which sounds funny because if you stepped outside of it, you'd say like, well, it's just, it's junior high basketball. It's you want the kids to do well, and it's been fun to be in the gym with them, seeing them improve week by week, practice by practice. And thank you for giving us a chance to talk about it.
Well, no, I think it's really important for people to hear about the satisfaction that can come from giving back, number one, as a coach. Number two, how important these moments are to these kids. This is their moment. And when I reflect back on you and your brothers and when you guys were playing community league, when you were playing junior high and high school, just how important that was and how some of the moments Yeah, to me, I always said this, and I said this to the guys that I coached at Concordia University here in Edmonton. I said, this is just as important, and I'd be curious about your opinion on this, Steve. This is just as important in this moment to you as it is to anybody playing at Duke, anybody playing at any university, no matter how high profile it might be. This is your moment. This is your life. This is your effort. And this is every bit as significant as that is.
I 100% agree with that. It's important as you want to make it. I've always steadfast believe this is the big times where you're at. You're never less than being somewhere that might be a farther off place, and you're never more than anybody else being at the highest level, because what you really do realize as you move through the game is if I'm giving myself an opportunity to play, if someone else has provided me an opportunity to play, it's as important as I want it to be. These are going to be my stories and my memories later on in life. We always, I think, start to have a little bit of a different version of it as we start to get older. Like, oh man, I never took a day off. I never took a play off. You know, if I missed
shots a day.
Yeah, if I missed a shot, it was because the rim was bad. Like, there's those hazy memories start to set in. But I've always really believed that the big times where you're at, it's not going to be grass is greener when you get to the other side, because you're going to get to the other side and be like, oh man, it's very similar to where it was. It's going to come down to whether or not I want to do the work, whether or not I'm going to fully commit to this, whether or not I'm going to deal with adversity in the right way and continue to go back. But that's always really struck a chord with me, is that level of importance that you put on something because of your own personal principles and your own personal expectations. And that's what it makes it feel like. The big times where I'm at, whether I'm in Mongolia coaching at the World Cup with our women for a medal, or whether you're coaching the junior high senior girls team at Otwell, you got to give the most to yourself, because you have to have that deep inside of you. It's difficult to not go on and on about it, but I think it's important to impart that to a variety of age groups of, well, I'll do this when I get there. Do it now, because when you get there, then you're going to be ready to continue it.
Well, and I think that's a great way to put it. And I think one of the challenges that young people have right now, even as opposed to when you were growing up, is that when you and your brothers were growing up, that was the time when the basketball world started to enlarge. Up until that point, it was very narrow. You had community league. That was one game on Saturday. You had junior high, and that was pretty much it. Then clubs started to come in, and you were part of one of the early clubs in Edmonton.
Sure.
But I think like now, there's if you play one game, there's another one, and there's another one coming. So I think sometimes, like you said, the big times where you're at, sometimes I think young people, 13, 14, 15 years old, it becomes rote. It just becomes routine, because you're playing so many games so often that you have to really battle to make sure it stays important, that you're on track to continue to do the work to become the better player, as opposed to just cruising through one game to the other. Fair observation from your perspective?
Agreed. I think it also then, if you wanted to add one more level to that, it becomes a major responsibility for adults of being able to help to keep this in context for kids. It isn't about, well, you got to do all this so you can go play in college. You got to do all this so you can be a pro. I hate when people talk with kids about being pros. I didn't think about playing professional basketball until my last year of playing at Northern Arizona. And I was already an all-conference guy. I already led the nation in three-point percentage. I just didn't think about that because I wanted to be an all-conference player. My biggest goals growing up were I wanted to play for the national team. I wanted to play in the States. I'll take one step back. I wanted to play for Dave Youngs at Ross Shepherd High School. I wanted to go to the States and prove I could play with those kids. I didn't have this bill of goods that was constantly sold to me by adults. And this is why I'm saying it's important for adults and coaches to do this, because I was fortunate to have that with you as one of my coaches, my first real coach, to have Phil Allen, to have Daryl Cleave, to have Dave Youngs, to have Mike Fullerton, to have these important role models who were coaching me, but then also instilled in me of like, be good now, focus on now, make this experience count now. If you do this stuff, there's going to be North Stars and pie in the sky, things that you can chase. But if you're not taking care of these things now, it's going to be really hard to do those things later. And, be where your feet are at. So in order to keep this in context, I think for younger players is you're right. There's always another game. But make those games count. Make those practices count. Look at it as like little grains of rice that are added to a huge bucket over time, and then all of a sudden that bucket's full, and you're ready for what comes next. Because what often gets underestimated is we talk about these big levels and these major places to play, and then you run up against it and you go like, I'm not ready for this at all. There's monsters in this thing, and I didn't realize it was going to be that big of a jump. It's generalizing, but I think the satisfaction that comes from keeping your feet on the ground where you are, of saying like, guys, like, let's enjoy this. Let's have fun. Let's compete. You've been working so hard. Go out there and make that time count right now, today, and then we'll worry about tomorrow. And if you're doing all that, you're getting to be a better player. So when you really stretch it out and look over the course of a season, have I gotten better? Of course you have, because you've been focusing on what's right in front of you at that moment, being the best player you can be, being the best teammate you can be, getting up off the bench and supporting somebody when they come out of the game, being ready to go when it's your number called. Those are things that I hold near and dear to myself because I had excellent coaching and excellent male role models in my life that helped me know that when it's my time to do this, when it's my time to tell these stories and to say and insist on these things, that it comes from a place of experience and it comes from a place knowing how valuable it can be. I think if we do that, then it gives kids a chance and it gives young players a chance to really value the moment. And then when you move to those other levels, the reality is you're going to reflect so fondly on those, because me coaching my daughter now, one of my favorite memories is playing at the McNally Junior High Feeder Tournament. And I've played at Kansas, and I've played at Arizona, and I've played it against all, and these are some of my most treasured moments. Kids don't know that. Adults really can help connect the dots.
Well, a couple of quick stories that I think would be fun to share. You mentioned the McNally tournament.
Yeah.
So it's a junior high tournament.
Not by accident. Yeah.
It's a junior high school tournament. Vernon Barford versus Otwell.
The greatest junior high basketball game ever played in Edmonton.
By far.
Yeah. Full stop.
Full stop. Unparalleled. And so here, it's a junior high tournament. It's the final in the evening. Barford has Mike Melnichuk. Mike had 51 points in the first half.
Yeah.
Barford had a 20-point lead on Otwell Junior High. Second half, Otwell comes storming back, down 20. Otwell wins 104-103. Melnichuk has 71. Steve has, I think, like 55. Steve has 55. And the crowd was insane.
Yeah.
Like, just like as vocal, as insane, as passionate as you'd find at any game anywhere. Packed gym.
Yeah.
It's a junior high game.
Hot. I remember the gym was
roasting.
boiling
Everybody
hot.
was just dripped.
It was
the
great.
Crowd was drenched in sweat. And I remember, because this is very un-Canadian, especially as it relates to basketball, not so much hockey, Josh. But, okay, so it's 104-103, and I remember walking out of the gym, and the mother of one of your teammates goes, "Was that okay?" She was like, "I'd never done that before." I said, "You'll remember this the rest of your life."
Fun, wasn't it? Yeah.
That was fun. That was alive, I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
The other game was your 9th grade year in Otwell Community League. So here's a community league game. We're down at Youth Provincials in Calgary, playing a Calgary team we had walloped earlier in the day.
Yep.
In the provincial championship.
Yep.
We're down at regulation play. We hit a shot to go to overtime.
Yep.
First overtime, we're down. Hit a shot at the buzzer to go to the second overtime. Second overtime, we're down. Hit a shot to go to a third overtime.
Yeah.
Now in the third overtime, we're down 2 with 12 seconds to go.
Something like that.
Something like that. You dribble down.
I make a tough shot coming off the right side. I remember John on our team set a good screen. I made a really tough shot.
Fadeaway 3.
Yeah, tie it. They inbound the ball to Dane, who I played provincial team with a couple years later, and he turns around, and MJ Anderson, who I played with at Otwell, is sitting right there unnoticed, and he tips the ball out of Dane's hands going up. So if anyone could see, his hand went up and tipped the ball up, caught it in the air, shot it at the buzzer when we win the provincials that way.
We win the provincials on a fadeaway baseline in triple overtime.
Yeah.
And if that wasn't as dramatic as any moment for anyone at any level, it was. It was every bit as dramatic. You've had those kind of moments at the highest level. I did a long, long time ago as a player as well. That was as special as any.
Very.
Because like you said, if you're in the moment, it matters. It doesn't matter that there's a national television audience. That doesn't matter to you, to the people that matter to you, if they're there to share it with you, with your teammates, with your coaches. That's really the essence of the sport, isn't it?
It's the bones of it. It's what you really, especially as you get older, what you realize is the substance of the sport, is the deep love for it, the commitment you have to your group, the real importance, like the genuine foundational importance of being competitive, wanting to win, and how that's going to mean that everyone has to contribute. It's not just me dribbling the ball. It's not me taking all the shots. It's all the little pieces fitting together of everyone feeling responsible for their jobs and proud of the effort that they give, be it a major contribution or even just something small off the bench that's still invaluable. It gets easier to understand when you're older. It gets easier to understand when you're older how lucky you are to have had those experiences. The two that you highlighted are two of my favorite basketball memories. You're awfully fortunate to have that. But then you think about, like, those were all our neighborhood kids. And I saw guys later on in life that all said that those were the best sports memories, some of the best memories of their lives. So again, it's easy to always be thinking about what's down the road, and then thinking that I'll just get through this stuff right now and I'll do the best that I can, but that's where I want to get, especially now with all the, when I get to the States with NIL and all these things, I'll be on TV and okay, but you'll never be able to get this stuff back. And as I said before at the beginning, big time's where you're at. And it all of a sudden becomes that much more apparent when you get older and maybe the game changes for you, where you become a coach or you're in some other kind of role, and people are going to want to know what was your basketball journey? What led you to wanting to be involved in coaching young players or helping out at a gym or passing to whoever or just going to the court with your son or daughter? What led you to want to try and do this? And those are the stories that the game's built upon. I would tell anybody, one of the keys to being really good at something, or really, if you want to, again, keep it in this context, really good at basketball, great at basketball, is understanding what came before you. Ask for those stories. When someone who's older is talking about these things that they experienced, like, listen, ask questions. That helped me growing up, of listening to your stories of playing at Winona State and playing college basketball in the States, but growing up as an American kid playing in that system. Dave Young's playing for the Golden Bears during their great era, and the players he played against. Who was the best shooter he played against? Who was the toughest defender? Who was the best player that he played with? You hear these types of things and you realize, like, man, there's a lot that came before me. I want to aspire to that. Big time's where you're at.
Big time's where you're at. And I think the parents and kids battle right now because the big time is presented to them in a variety of ways, oftentimes with a price tag attached to it. And you have to be very wise to navigate through that, both as a parent and as an athlete, about what experience you actually want to get involved at, and not lose sight, like you said, of where you're at right now. Because watching your Otwell girls play and the amount of improvement that has gone on this season, the intensity that they play with, you can see that they are being encouraged and they are buying into where they're at.
Yeah.
And that's all across, and that's because you're involved and it's our family, but that's all across the city. It's all across the world. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
That's the common thread in the experience.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
We're going to take a break right now, and we're going to return with our community champion, Steve Sir, here on Hoop City with Paul Sir, Josh Fenwick on your sports leader, Sports 1440. We're joined by our community champion, Steve Sir, this morning. Steve, today literally is the day that 3x3, FIBA 3x3 gets going in the world, with minor events right now, relatively speaking. But the circuit, the tour, is going to start up real soon. It's a new Olympic cycle. Gearing up, this will be the third Olympics that 3x3 will be a medal sport in. The sport is growing in leaps and bounds. There are more events globally than ever before. I would say one of the big growth areas is an area that's very special to you, and that's in the women's side of things. Talk about what's happening in the 3x3 world.
As you said, it's going to be the third Olympic cycle where 3x3 is a medal sport. They've expanded to 12 countries on both the men's and the women's side, up from 8.
From 8, yeah.
More opportunities, which is great. The expansion comes at a good time because there's, I don't think, ever been a point in the sport where it's been as competitive as it is on the Pro Tour, and then also connecting to national teams. As you mentioned, there are events starting already. I mean, it's February. When I first started getting involved in 3x3, the season didn't really get going until May. So it's pushed up further and it's pushed back further. It's a full professional season with cups, with Pro Tour stops, with smaller events that connect to these other things. There's so much opportunity now for teams to play and compete and earn spots. One of the main areas that was an area of concern when I started playing was, how do new teams get started in this? And you can see that there are vast opportunities now for new teams to get themselves together, get to a stop, play, and as with everything, well, how do we get going? It's like, well, you're gonna have to play, and then you're gonna have to win. So that's the hardest part. But it's great to see from a growth standpoint. It's great to see the amount of players that are coming in, how serious this is being taken, the amount of training and the amount of attention to detail. All of that, when you wrap it all up, makes for a great product to watch, a super competitive field in which to be a part of. And as you mentioned too, the women's side continues to grow by leaps and bounds. So this is not just on the men's side as well. Like this is continuing to grow and be pushed forward for both sides.
Well, and I think it's exciting to see because the women's side, it's taken a few years to start to gain what I would call just momentum.
Yeah.
But it's become more professionalized, obviously, more participation. The players playing are better. The teams are taking it much more seriously. Like you described, I'll go back to that term. The professionalization of 3x3 is really taking hold. And of course, that's what you're involved with. Heavily involved with the country of Mongolia, large geographic countries stuck geographically in the middle between China and Russia. Yeah. 3.5 million people in a vast space. But they have really targeted 3x3 as a sport that they're not just passionate about, but they believe they can compete at the Olympic level. And that was borne out this past year when your Mongolian women finished with the silver medal at the World Cup. That's huge, Steve. Talk about that journey.
It was not a easy, quick journey.
No.
2 years ago when I took over the women's program, we had won one game on the Pro Tour, on the Women's Series Tour, and it was not a pretty one, if I'm just being honest. It was one of those ones.
Fight.
Yeah, with big, heavy rocks. So it was something that when we looked at, but it's fun to joke about now, especially with the girls, because of how far we've come. But one of the things when I came into the program, in particular on the women's side, was there's something there. We can get better if we just focus on the simple, basic things of basketball. If we take care of the ball better, still a work in progress for us. Our passing is something that can always get better. But if we improve that, we'll be a little bit better. If we shoot it a little bit better, we'll be better. If we have a better commitment to the defensive end of the ball, I mean, one of the areas in 3x3 that has oftentimes been misunderstood is that it's fast-paced and, you can give this up. You don't give anything up. You have to play basketball. Like the parallels that you can draw between 5-on-5 and 3x3, it's basketball, but it's different. But then there's the things that are universally correct between both sports, where it's you don't just concede points. You don't just make the decision of, I'm just going to wander out here and I'm going to ask for play defense. And this was one thing that we had to really instill on the women's side, was taking pride on that side of the ball and being a group that made it difficult for them to score. Of course, it's 3x3. It's fast. There's good players. Every year, as you mentioned, the players have gotten better. So you're going to have to make that effort. It's not going to be easy. But then also, too, the emotional and the mental side of it was a big part of that, too. Feeling worthy to compete and feeling that if you do, much like what we talked about before, if you're doing the hard work day by day, the real hard work, not the Instagrammable stuff that you get pats on the back for through likes and comments, like the thankless stuff. If you're doing that, that should instill in you that you are deserving of good results. You are deserving of these wins. And that was a big hump for us to get over, because we would run up in games where we'd be playing tough, we'd be right there, and then there would be a tough moment or a couple plays that wouldn't go right, and we would start to get this high level of anxiety of, here we go again. We shouldn't be here in the first place. That was a big mountain to climb for us, and I don't think for anybody that's ever a fully formed thing. Everyone's always going to have doubt when they're competing, especially when you're competing against teams that are really good and are really going after you. But the stride that we made there to give our women credit was huge, because we went from a place of just kind of being patted on the back of, you guys keep doing a good job, you're trying so hard, and I hated that for the players. Of this has to motivate you
patronizing.
to very much so. This has to motivate you to stick it to them, that you're not just here to be the participation ribbon. Like, you're here to play, you're here to win games, you're here to compete, you're here to show the hard work that you've been putting in. And steadily progressing, winning a bronze medal at Asia Cup, massive step for us. Winning a women's series in Ulaanbaatar, huge step for us. And then to have that the next year end in a silver medal at World Cup was unthinkable. But it showed what's possible when you really invest in the betterment of the group, the betterment of the individuals. Obviously, what's good for the individual is going to be good for the group. What's good for the group is going to be good for the individual. And our girls really bought into that. And now the next challenge will be is, how do you maintain that? How do you get to that rare air and take that little itty bitty step, that game of inches, to even take it a little bit further, or just maintain what you've done? And that'll be the next challenge. And it's a fun challenge, because they took these ones on head on and saw what was possible. So now you can always say that, hey, you can't tell me that it's not rewarding. This changed these girls' lives. Now you got to be tough enough to get back to work and realize that you got a whole season in front of you, and you got to try and do it again.
From 2 years ago, winning one game, to walking down the steps of the presidential national palace, receiving medals from the president of Mongolia, because you accomplished something that's never been accomplished by any Mongolian team before, to medal in a World Cup or in any major world team event before. Like you said, it changed their lives. But now comes the hard work.
Yeah.
You had the hard work to this point, but now comes the hard work, and it's different hard work. It's the same but different.
Yeah.
Maintaining, not dropping back, maintaining and building. And it's still going to be the slow build, isn't it? There's no shortcut. No,
it still comes back to the same things. Are we going to get better as players? Like, are the players improving? That's a question in talking to other coaches that I think handle this the right way. It's a question that I ask myself a lot when we're over there. It's, are we getting better? Like, are our players getting better? Do they feel like they're getting better?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean we play great all the time, but are we taking steps? Are we better in certain situations than we were a month ago? 3x3 it's a wild sport, because it's constantly changing.
And it is a marathon year.
Very much. And it's one of the hardest competitive areas of having stops be your form of competition. It's impossible to peak all the time you play over 8 months. And that's such a unique area for 3x3, because you have all these World Tour events. We've had World Tour in Edmonton, so people who are listening have had a chance to see what an event like this looks like. It's a 2-day event. You play a maximum, if you win everything, 5 games in those 2 days. You have to factor in travel. You have to factor in tournament you might have coming next, or the tournament you're coming from. But to be constantly on some steady arc of improvement all year is impossible. You're going to have peaks and you're going to have valleys. How quickly can you get out of the low spots? When you are up, how do you work to maintain it without having an unrealistic amount of pressure on the teams? And then how do you manage your practice time, your recovery time, your time in the weight room, your time in video, all those other things around, trying to make sure that we're just ready for what's next and we're learning from what happened. It's a big challenge, but I think especially when you get into 3x3 world. You and I were talking a little bit about this yesterday. It's a really interesting community of people. There's a lot of collaboration. There's a lot of big borrow and steal. And there's also a lot of understanding within the community that, like, this is a tough sport. It requires a lot. So, you know, when people get down, there also is support within the community of, like, you know, you guys will get back. You guys will keep working. But, you know, if you're in an event early, like, well, why don't we get a practice together and we'll work through some stuff. We can talk, we can do that. And then you might see that same team over the next weekend playing in a competition. That stuff lends to it too. And I think for the players, you have to be cut from a certain cloth in order to take that on. You got to be, I'm not saying tougher, but you got to be a little different to want to have that challenge of, like, okay, we won last week. Got a whole new tournament where it all resets next week. Can we do it again? It's really tough to do, and but it makes it a lot of fun. It's a very, very different way to do competition, but a lot of fun.
A lot of fun, and like you said, I'd like to highlight and emphasize a lot of really good people, not just well-intended, but genuinely caring and genuinely collaborative while still maintaining their goals and ambitions.
Very much so.
But there really seems to have been a culture of collaboration that the people genuinely seem to buy into the fact that if we work together, we're all going to get better, as opposed to what often happens of teams, players, coaches going into silos and trying to hide what they're doing. There's really no secrets in 3x3.
No, and I could talk about this for an hour. It's one of the things that really fascinates me about the sport. When you talk to most of the people that are involved, men and women's side, there's always a story that led them to 3x3. They weren't drafted. It wasn't something that they played all the way up from youth. Everybody in a formal setting, everyone who's played basketball has played 3-on-3, whether it's at Hoop It Up or Gus Macker or Red Bull or whatever you want, whatever version you have in your community, everyone's played it. In practice, when you have to teach specific things and you want to have more space, and everyone always says the same thing. It's a lot of fun. I have more room to be creative. I'm touching the ball. It's harder, much harder. There's more conditioning, off-ball movement, all those good things. But all the people that are involved in it on a professional level, all of them came into the sport and they did because they wanted to. They chose to. There was an opportunity that they saw. Very rarely are you looking at this and there's someone that begrudgingly was taken into the sport. All right, I'll do it. There have been people that have done that. Absolutely. They don't last very long. So what I've always loved about the 3x3 world is you got to be a little bit of an outlaw to be in 3x3. There has to be a little bit of, maybe this didn't work out for me in 5-on-5, or maybe this didn't happen. I'm coming in here with something to prove. I want to show that I can do this. I want to play for my national team. I want to do this and have it be mine. For coaches, most of the coaches that have come into 3x3 that are established now, we're doing it for nothing. They're either doing it for free or just a little bit of travel or something like that, on top of maybe another job that they were already doing. There's a few guys involved in this world that work, and then when it's time to go to 3x3, they're away for the weekend and they're using their time off. I love that about it because it gets to the heart of what we were talking about before. It's being competitive. It's wanting to be a part of something where this is still a little bit of undiscovered country, where you're blazing your own trail in your own community, and then you're connecting at these international events. And you're competing against these other places that are trying to figure this out and trying to put a strategy together of their own. We've done that here in Canada with Edmonton hosting multiple World Tour, Challenger, Women's Series, Quest. I mean, Edmonton's been the leader. In other areas of the country, we've had efforts. It hasn't been able to stabilize, I think, the same way that you see over in Europe and Asia, where you can count on every year in all these different markets events happening. But a big effort has been made, and a lot of people enjoy it. I love that about Mongolia as well, is they've identified this is our possible real shot, being at the plate, of hitting the ball out of the park and saying we're going to the Olympics. We're qualifying our teams to play at the Olympics. And our women's team played at the Tokyo Olympics because they qualified through the format that they had at that time. But now what we really want is, like, well, we want to play at the Olympics because we earned the spot through competition, and we're at a stage now where we can compete to get there and not rely on maybe a system. I love that part of the game. I think it's so cool to hear the stories within the game of what led people to there and then what makes them successful while they're there, as opposed to it's just a stopover and something for me to do. I could go on, but I think that lends to the excitement of the sport and the importance that a lot of people put into it, is because it's generally in most cases a labor of love. And it's never been because I'll just do this because there's lots of money that's being put my way, or I'll get all this recognition. Tons of stuff doesn't get recognized in the sport, but it's still an Olympic level. It's becoming more and more professionalized, as we mentioned. And the people that are in it, like having to try and figure out how to make this work, and the amount of work that goes into it, a lot of fun.
A lot of fun, very special. You have been a stalwart in it for a long, long time. I think it's now going on, is it 9 years or 10 years you've been involved in 3x3?
9 years.
9 years. So, well, Steve, we're going to take a break right now, but I'd like you to stay for our last segment as well.
Love to.
Okay, you've been listening to a special 3x3 segment here on Hoop City with Paul Sir and Josh Fenwick. We'll be right back after these messages. Josh, before we get into our discussion in the last segment, what's our poll saying today?
Yeah, so actually this was pretty divisive. I threw my vote in just a few minutes ago, and so the leading vote is Wembanyama. No votes for your guy Cooper Flagg.
It's okay.
No votes, and then split on Con Knippel and Anthony Edwards.
Interesting. Well, I think everybody made a great choice with Wemby. The fact that you wouldn't listen to me on Cooper, well, that's your problem, not mine. So, but it's a good question. This is a 10th anniversary right now, Steve, of someone who shoots the three like you do. That the shot that Steph Curry took, that this is the 10th anniversary of that shot, which I think it was 43 feet.
Something like that.
Something like that?
Yeah, right around there, 43 feet. Obviously one of the most iconic calls in basketball history, which is insane because it's a regular season game. But
100%. Iconic call, iconic shot. People talk often about the fact that Steph Curry has changed the way the game's played. Mm-hmm. Probably, definitely more impactful than any player of this generation in terms of altering the style of play and what people think about. But what do you think, Steve? Like a shot like that, you shoot from distance comfortably. The problem with it is now everybody wants to take threes, and the overall shooting is getting better. But what people don't understand is what players like yourself and, of course, Steph Curry have done to become the shooters that you've become. Just because it looks great doesn't mean it is great for everybody to be taking the threes that they're taking.
Sure. We're in the analytics era where more threes equal this, but it's been interesting to watch what versions teams at the NBA and the collegiate level come up with for that. There are some teams that have figured out that just shooting anything and everything is not the best strategy for them. It's been interesting to see the NBA this year, how well the Pistons have done and not shoot the three well at all. So there is still a world where it's not the be-all, end-all, that you're going to now just have a free-for-all shooting threes. There's still, I think, a respect, if you use the Pistons as an example, of what's best suits our team, while also having all the pundits and people around it saying, well, imagine if they just added even a little more shooting, what would that do for their team? As a shooter, it's interesting to watch because you see some guys that play at those levels that when they shoot, you're like, that's not going in. And I got to imagine I'm not the only one thinking that when you're watching it. There's still a respect for, like, if you're going to shoot it, there has to be a strong chance of making it. And there are times when you have an NBA game on and there's some guys shooting threes. There's no way that anybody thought.
There's a reason you're open.
Yeah, there's no way anyone thought that was going in. So some of the volume stuff is still something that I don't completely get, coming from an era where it was still very much about post touches and shot clock management. And again, I had the ability to shoot, but it was still very regulated even in college when we were playing faster than most teams. And if we had shots in transition, it was generally okay if we got them up. But it's nothing like what you'll see now of how there's layups being passed up and guys will be throwing it out for three. That never happened back then.
You averaged what, about 6 or 7 threes a game? FGA's field goal attempts?
I think my senior year, I led the nation in threes per game, and I made 4 point something, and I think I was taking about 8 or 9.
8 or 9, okay.
But even then, that's not that many.
Well, yeah, so how many would you take today if you were playing?
I've heard, when I've talked to people that are involved with basketball in 5-on-5 now, they say like minimum you're probably taking 15 threes a game. So your percentage might be a little bit lower. Like I'm making 4.2, I think it was, and I'm shooting 9. So I'm right hovering around that 50%. So maybe I'm shooting 41 or 42%, but you're scoring more points.
Yeah.
And it's much easier to, I think, to say like if we're getting those amount of shots up, where we're getting this amount of points on the board for our team. If Steve's shooting this kind of percentage from behind the 3, there are some guys that are probably not shooting that from 2. So wouldn't we want more of this?
Yeah. I mean, the equivalent of shooting 41% is like 60% from 2. Mm-hmm. So I mean, you're the analytics add up on that. One of the other teams that I think has impacted the game is as you point out, the Pistons aren't winning on 3-pointers, but they're winning. SGA has popularized the mid-range game again. Yeah. Oklahoma City is more versatile, and again, pundits like to point out, well, they don't shoot the 3 ball that well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they do a lot of other things really, really well. So I think there's a little bit more common sense coming back into basketball now, that there is a variety to the way that you can structure your team and build around your strengths, as opposed to everybody trying to play the cookie cutter style of hucking up as many threes as you can.
And I like that. That's what makes basketball fun, is having variety and having nuance. And if this is our team and these are our players and this is their skill set, well, what's going to be the best way for us to play to win? I always love that about the era that I grew up in with college basketball in particular, where you knew if you were playing Princeton, they played this way. Or if you knew if you were playing Wisconsin, they played this way. Or if you were going to UNLV, they played this way, because this is the way that these coaches knew how to coach, and this is how they recruited to their program.
At Syracuse,
very much so.
Playing a 2-3 zone.
You're going to play the 2-3 zone. If you're playing a team that's just pressing the whole time, that's what makes it fun. It's cool to see that stuff coming back, where post presence and size and players who can play closer to the basket, how important that is, mixed with more thinking that the mid-range is valuable, because if a guy can hit these kind of shots, why wouldn't you want them taking it? And just more variety, guys that have some junk to their game, guys that are able to do some things. It makes it a more entertaining product to watch, and it just adds to the variety of what makes basketball special.
Hoop City with Paul Sir. Josh Fenwick, our special guest, is our community champion, Steve Sir. Okay, you've got the NCAA, where right now Duke's playing Virginia. Duke is just putting a beat down on a very good Virginia team. But as you go into the playoffs, or as March Madness is just around the corner, Steve, who are the teams that you're watching the most that you favor, that are going to be in the thick of it when you get to the Final Four?
I feel like I've seen Kansas play more than anybody else, because they're just always on TV. But if they're healthy and Peterson's
decides to play,
if he wants to play basketball, then I think they'll be tough. I really love how when they're playing well, how they push the ball, how aggressive they are around the rim, how they defend. Last year we had it was such a good Final Four.
It really was.
And the games were so entertaining. They were so well played. If I'm not mistaken, those were the 4 1 seeds, if I'm remembering last year. And I'm curious if it'll play out again like that this year, where you have your top-ranked, clear-cut, best teams based on ranking playing at the end again, or are you going to see some upsets? I think it always comes down to who gets in what region and who could possibly play spoiler, or is this a bad matchup for whoever in that region. But what I'm most excited about is what we were talking about before we went on the air. It's the best 3 weeks in sports. When the tournaments get going, all the games are happening. If there's closer games, if there's blowouts, if there's whatever, and then looking forward to the matchups that you see down the road. It'll be really interesting to see how the conference tournaments plays out, if there's any surprises there, if some people get some unexpected berths that knock maybe some people down to at-large bids, and then how it gets dispersed regionally and who's going to have to match up with who in order to make a Final Four run.
Absolutely. Teams. Duke, do you think they'll be in the Final Four?
I think they'll have a good shot. I mean, they're awfully good. We were talking off the air how good Boozer is and how he makes other guys better.
Yep.
I'll be curious to see with BYU because of all the Debansa stuff. They just lost to Central Florida at home. They lost a crucial piece of their team that clearly has affected, and why wouldn't it? I mean,
why wouldn't it?
He was really good.
Really good.
But I'll be curious what that looks like. Arizona's super tough.
Yep.
Really, really tough. Houston's really tough. Iowa State's really tough. Michigan's tough. So you have what's interesting about this year is you have even the amount of teams that we just mentioned. That's more than 4. And at some point, those teams have to go head to head in the tournament and make the win to move on. Could make for some really good games. And there's also some really good players. Everybody's gone on about how strong the NBA draft is going to be this upcoming year, and those guys are featured heavily on some of these top teams. Should make for an awesome month.
It really will. Like last year, Rutgers had they had 2 draft picks, and they had
awful. They were terrible.
Yeah, sub 500 team.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But this year, the top draft picks are all for very high-profile winning programs.
Yeah.
That add credibility to the depth that people are talking about all the time. And I think that it is the most magical time of the year. And when you look at March Madness, both on the men's and women's side, leading into the NBA playoffs, my God, that's what's so great about it, is we're just now going to be hitting the ground running.
Sure.
So, well, Steve, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. This was really fun. It was great to reminisce about some of the games that you played in Edmonton that were such a part of the community. And I think that community league, which is now more of the Edmonton Youth Basketball Association, that still to me is the lifeblood of basketball. The emphasis is placed on community, and the emphasis is to find a level where all kids can play. And I think that's really special. But thank you very much. Of course, when you head back over to
Thanks for having me.
Steve Sir, our community champion of the day, joining us here on Hoop City. Every week at this time, we remember our son, who passed away going on 3 years. And his friend David Finkelman, also taken too soon. And just encourage everyone, make sure that you value the people in your life that are so important to you, and that you treat others with kindness, as we never know what people are going through in their lives when not walking a mile of their shoes. Josh, it's been a great week. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Oh, hey, happy to do it. I'm looking forward to seeing you next week already. Actually, I guess virtually I'll be seeing you
next week. It'll be virtual, but then be back after that. But as always, Josh, appreciate all that you do. Everybody out there, thank you so much for watching and listening. Hope you have a great week. And we'll look forward to talking more hoops with you next weekend on Hoops also.